African Americans in communities where I've worked, there's been notion of acting white, which sometimes is overstated, but there's an element of truth to it where, okay, if boys are reading too much, then, well, why are you doing that? Or why are you speaking so properly? And the notion that there's some authentic way of being black, that if you're going to be black, you have to act a certain way and wear a certain kind of clothes, that, that has to go, because there are a whole bunch of different ways for African American men to be authentic.
The initial idea came from me when I think Sav sent me an interview with a Cash Me Outside chick, and she was on a radio station and she was basically responding to people accusing her of being or acting black. Okay, then that brought me to think like, wait, whenever you see a black dude well-spoken or articulating himself well or speaking in language that's actually in a dictionary and shit, they're labeled as acting white. And the reason why to me it's like it needs to be addressed, because it becomes a problem when the only things that are synonymous with acting black are like fucking negative shit, where everything that's synonymous with being white is fucking positive, like having money, being well-spoken, having education, do you know what I'm saying, actually wearing your clothes properly. And I'm like, yo, we need to fucking stop this shit. I think it's regressive in the community that I somewhat pertain to, because obviously being black, I'm relatively young in this country, this shit applies to me. So it just bugs me and it irritates me when I see, especially other black folks, talking down on other black folks for being smart. And I hate how somehow, I don't know how, intelligence is looked down upon, when to me it should be something that's revered and seen in high spirits. So I wanted to address that, so we start looking at this whole thing differently. So kids in school aren't being mocked for being smart, or aren't being told they're not black enough because they're smart, or because they can read, or they're not behaving a certain way. Like being black is like a one-dimensional thing. I just it really bugs me, that whole fucking notion. So I wanted to like bring it up and then somewhat address it and see what other people thought and shit.
When you're black, you have to deal with so much crap in your life from other black people. It's a dirty, dark secret. I'm glad it's coming out. For some reason, we are brainwashed to think if you're not a thug or an idiot, you're not black enough. If you go to school, make good grades, speak intelligent, and don't break the law, you're not a good black person. And it's a dirty, dark secret, Anthony. Listen, I hate...
Science experiment, Graham, when I speak at schools. Like, let's say I'm at a white school. I said, how many of you kids want to play pro sports? Less than 10% raised their hand. I said, what do you want to do? I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be an engineer. But when I go speak at predominantly black schools, 90% of the kids want to play sports. 90%. There's a couple like, I want to be a doctor, which makes me really proud. But 90% of kids, when I speak at black schools, our kids are brainwashed to think they can only play sports and be entertainers. You got a better chance of being a doctor and a lawyer than playing in the NBA. I tell you, that's 400 players in the NBA. What are the chances you're going to be one of the 400 best players in the world? Like I say, and I'm not trying to bash their dreams. I wish everybody could do it. But you have to also be realistic. You're not going to play in the NBA. Who are we kidding?
Black people are brainwashed into thinking if you're not a thug or an idiot, you're not black enough.
There's a certain amount of truth to that. You know, sometimes we translate blackness as being almost what he just said, like ignorant. Like if somebody talks articulately, you know, because I'm not even gonna lie, I've been accused of this before. Like when I was younger, and like even as an adult, like I've had people be like, yo, you sound like a white boy sometimes. Like, really? Why is that? Because my pronunciation, because I know certain words that the average person might not be using. What makes me sound like a white boy? Because I'm obviously not a white boy. You know what I mean? My allegiances and the things I'm into says nothing like that. So what makes you say that I talk like a white boy? You see? That's some brainwash shit right there. Like, I talk like someone who understands language, who's able to go into different ciphers and express myself and communicate. So I can go from the ghetto to the boardroom and get my point across with
Right.
whoever's in front of me.
As you should.
Because I'm white, FYI, in case you didn't know. Being a white woman, I would never say to a black person, that you're acting white. That's, so for me, I obviously hear people say it. In my circle, my echo chamber of political people, it would be because of something they, debating that grime is colourblind. They would be like, oh, you're acting white, or that kind of thing, as opposed to these days, for me, it's so wildly insulting to say to a black person that you're, it's even insulting to say you're articulate, because that's just, it's the act of surprise. It's like, are you really...
The double-ended sword with that is if you tell a white person they're acting black, again, it's actually only offensive to black people.
Yeah, but of course...
It's not offensive to that white person, because what you're actually saying is those characteristics. Because I've had it before, you talk black.
Oh, yeah.
What do you mean I talk? Well, I just didn't go to school. So what, does that mean that that's black? Because I don't talk eloquently because I didn't... Do you see what I'm saying? That doesn't offend me.
No,
it's offensive to black people to assume that that characteristic
Of course it is. People still today are equating whiteness with being able to articulate yourself. For me, that is are we really at the stage when we've had Trevor McDonald giving us our news? Yeah, for me, again, it's kind of that reminder of how present racism still is, and how and that kind of racism and bias is there.
I guess it's terminology that's used to kind of somewhat, package a stereotype.
Yeah.
But I'm saying even within that breadth, it still kind of needs to be readdressed. And I think we need to use something different, because it actually has, in my opinion, some fucking insidious effects.
Where do you draw the line in saying that someone is acting white, and then saying someone is actually, a black person is perpetuating the ideology of white supremacy? Because in that instance, maybe there is validity in saying the person is acting white. I think it's very, very obvious that the concept of acting black contains negative connotations. And I think so whether you're telling a black person that they're acting white, or you're telling a white person that they're acting black, it always holds the same connotation of negative or ill-educated, or unsavory or unsociable, is always attached to being black, and the idea of acting white is always attached to success and highly educated. And I think the only time that doesn't apply is in the concept of if somebody is essentially adhering to white supremacist ideas, then I can understand why they might be referred to as acting white, so to speak, if the ideology that you're trying to achieve is rooted in this idea of a white supremacist kind of ideology.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue it's arguable that a lot of mainstream rappers, if we're going to take Snips's definition, is acting white, in the sense of, they sit very closely with the establishment. They very much echo the sentiments that white supremacy would like to project out there to the world. They very much have a lot of ingrained, whether it be misogyny or inherent racism even, sometimes when they're talking about red bone bitches, as a preference over dark-skinned bitches, when rappers are saying that, I'm not ever having dark-skinned children again. CC Lil Wayne, it's saying
Kodak Black.
Lil Wayne. Yeah.
Like Chris Brown, he did a lyric saying, "All my bitches got real hair," and which is fucking ridiculous, because it's his mum probably wore a weave, so I don't know, or whoever probably wore a weave. And then with Lil Wayne, I don't understand how he's I'd only go for light skinned, or just anyone that's light skinned, because I'm it literally self-hatred. And again, it's him being uneducated, and he needs to look in the mirror, because at the end of the day, how can he be there's a difference between having preference in what you like and being like, oh no, I wouldn't ever like touch anybody that's dark skin or whatever, because he's dark skin and he looks in the mirror and that's what he's gonna see. So I feel like it is issues with himself, and it's just like such an it just gets so angry because it's so relevant still.
You know, we've had Tyrese saying things like, you know, I've only got light skinned girls because I picked the best bunch, you know, and so that's his understanding of best. So I guess in that sense, there is a definite way that people can echo the sentiments of a lot of racist ideals. And yeah, I would definitely say that's acting white, but I don't think they're aware of that.
And a couple folks here.
The way we think about color, the closer you are to whiteness and lightness, good. The closer you are to darkness and black, dirty, bad. We already are black, and so we're already labeled as dirty, bad. It's not black people's fault that when I see the light-skinned girl that I think she's better or she got more privilege than me. Because that's what the white people tell me. That's what these stories tell me. That's what television tells me. And so we have to think of it with a different lens of, it's not our fault. This is what they told us. And we have to fight against that and think more on a grounds of, we are black people, we are people.
You're gonna come right here.
Growing up, I didn't have a real good support from my mom. She was really color struck. We're the same color. And my mom did not love her color. So growing up, I didn't know how to love myself. I used to be the girl that I have to buy weave because if I don't, nobody's gonna like me. And now I cut off all my hair because that's something I've always wanted to do. And I was terrified to do it because I was like, people are gonna hate me so much for cutting off my hair. But when I did it, I felt so beautiful and free. Nobody could tell me anything at that point. I was a beautiful black woman with short hair, and you can't tell me anything about myself.
Black people aren't the only people who have colorism issues. I think the challenge for the black community is that we've internalized it and we've made it more vicious than it has to be in today's society. There are many people on Twitter who comment on how dark I am. I'm medium tone.
Right.
I'm too dark for some, I'm too light for others, and for a lot of them, I'm too round. But our opportunity is to decide who we intend to be in the space and how we're going to treat others in that space with us.
Yes.
Because whether we see the prejudice or we see the privilege, there are those who are making decisions about us, and they are imposing those decisions on us when they hire, when they fire, when they send a preschooler to time out, or when they send a teenager to prison. Those choices are being made, so we can't dismiss that it exists, but we can build the protections around ourselves so that we aren't doing it internally.
Do you think it's changing very much?
Yes, I mean, it's absolutely getting better because we talk about it. When you deny a problem, you can't fix the problem. And I think what's helpful for all of us is that we're actually talking about this as an issue, and we're talking about solutions.
Ma'am, I'd love to hear from you.
I am light-skinned, but I have never been treated like I was white in my life. I've always been black. I've never felt any different from anybody else. And when I go to work, when I went to school, I was treated like a black woman. I was disrespected like a black woman. So it bothers me when people think because you're light-skinned, you're treated differently. I have never had that advantage in my life.
Of pop culture, darker-skinned women have frequently gotten the short end of the success stick. Just consider the most successful black female singers in the last decade. You can probably come up with dozens of names, including Alicia Keys, Ciara, Mariah Carey, Jhené Aiko, and of course, Beyonce. But can you name even 5 deeply melanated female pop stars? I mean, we did have Brandy as Cinderella, but that was 20 years ago. Wait, was it? From Lena Horne, the first black actress to sign a major studio deal, to Halle Berry, the first black actress to win a Best Actress Academy Award, lighter-skinned and often mixed-race women have usually broken through society's biggest barriers first. Now, this isn't to say they weren't hardworking or didn't deserve it, but black people with lighter skin, straighter hair, and more Eurocentric features have always been more likely to be given the paltry number of opportunities to access white spaces and institutions. This is the reality, but why? Now, before we answer that, we gotta say, who's considered dark-skinned or light-skinned is all relative and definitely varies from culture to culture. But for our purposes, when we say light-skinned, think Nicki Minaj, Zoe Kravitz, Rihanna, Zendaya. And when we say dark-skinned, think Viola Davis, Kelly Rowland, and Lupita. The roots of this light versus dark inequality stem all the way back to the days of slavery, when lighter-skinned slaves, often the mixed children of white slave owners, aka the product of rape, aka you're not slick Thomas Jefferson, were given domestic work as opposed to the physical labor of darker slaves, thus landing higher on the skin tone hierarchy because of their proximity to whiteness. This separation was enacted based on the slave traders' false beliefs that darker-skinned people were better suited for hard labor, whereas lighter-skinned blacks were thought to be better suited for intelligent and domestic tasks. Don't get it twisted though, whether in the house or in the field, they were still enslaved, so it was definitely not a choice, no matter what your weird cousin on Facebook says. Out of the house slave versus field slave mentality came white supremacist stereotypes that framed light-skinned people as the good blacks and darker-skinned people as lazy, unintelligent, unattractive, undesirable, criminal, aggressive, and just all around bad. Now, while the skin tone hierarchy known as colorism is a byproduct of white supremacy, it's not just a white thing. Stereotypical figures like the angry black woman and sassy black friend are unfortunately also present in black-made media. In the recent past, there have been numerous examples of black people in the media perpetuating the idea that lighter is better. The popular 90s sitcom Martin, as brilliant as it was, is a shining example of this problem. Light-skinned Gina was positioned as attractive, intelligent, and funny versus her dark-skinned friend Pam, who despite being bangin', was often coded as unattractive and the butt of many of Martin's jokes. And what we will not do is stand for anyone coming for sitcom legend Tashina Arnold. And there's been even more recent instances of this. Remember that time Kanye West held a Yeezy casting asking for multiracial women only? Or when the casting call for the movie Straight Outta Compton described A girls as the hottest of the hottest with real hair, and D girls as, and I quote, African American girls, poor, not in good shape, medium to dark skin tone. Yikes, it be your own people. Or remember when rapper Kodak Black, himself a dark-skinned black man, said that he doesn't date women who share his complexion because they're too gutter? Come on now, Kodak, black is in your name. These examples point to the fact that many black people, even those with the power to create change within their own industries, sometimes internalize the very colorist stereotypes that have kept them down. Now, the media doesn't necessarily cause colorism, but it reinforces it in ways that have real-world implications. Colorism has much wider ramifications than just who we see on our movie screens or on the cover of magazines. So prepare your hot Cheetos and Tums, because this gets even sadder. A 2011 study conducted in North Carolina found out that of the over 12,000 African American women prisoners, light-skinned women were sentenced to 12% less prison time than darker ones. Or consider the fact that according to a Harvard University study, dark-skinned blacks in the United States have lower socioeconomic status, more punitive relationships with the criminal justice system, diminished prestige, and less likelihood of holding elective office compared with their lighter counterparts. There have even been black dating apps with filters for skin tone. In other words, by privileging lighter skin, straighter hair, and more Eurocentric features, the media creates an environment that affects dark-skinned people on a social, political, and personal level. And yes, the only Aunt Viv I recognize is the original dark-skinned Aunt Viv.
Now, not that they're actually not the black people that white people would say, oh, you're actually
Yeah, no, but I guess that also there's a difference between a colonized mind. So, for example, if you would grow up only seeing women on the front, like the most attractive women being white all the time on the front of the covers, you know, or as in the videos and this, then I'm not taking the blame away from those rappers because they are accountable and it's trash as well. But that's come from somewhere, and that's come from white supremacy. You know, because we have to
be careful here. We can't attach acting white to white supremacy, because in my opinion, they're two different things, especially when we're talking culturally. In culture, when we talk acting white, we're not saying, oh, you're on some white supremacy shit. That's not what we mean. We mean, like, I mean, to a degree, perhaps, but it's more, but in this instance, it's more kind of like, it's basically saying that, it's almost like saying that biologically, your skin color determines how you behave, which is fucking incorrect and scientifically just not factual, right? So we need to get away from that being some sort of, I don't know.
But we do live in a world where there is a system in place that actually makes sure that due to your skin color, you put in an environment that does alter the way that you behave.
I think, it's important as well that people who are saying things, black people who are saying things like you're acting white, they have to recognize the ingrained racism within that statement. That means that you have a silent admission that whiteness is correct, and everything else is secondary to that. And that is what you're saying each time that you liken a positive trait to whiteness, you are saying that is the standard by which we need to measure ourselves.
Exactly.
So it's a bit like just self-hatred. I feel like it's a lot of self-hatred. And obviously that brings on the point that you were making, and also like basically the foundation of where we live our lives, the society that we've become accustomed to is built by obviously the Western world. Like that's just the reality. We won't get into history, but I think it was 1492, that's when shit went crazy. So yeah, and we have to think about it's education. Education is key, like when it comes to everything. Okay, so when it comes to self-hatred, that is only because we haven't been exposed. For example, a main example is this. I used to straighten my hair when I was younger. I considered that as self-hatred. That's why I was like, no, I'm going clean, I'm just having my hair curly. To learn how to love my hair for what it is. Learn how to look after your hair. A lot of people aren't taught, especially if you're coming from biracial families. Now, who is teaching who how to do what? So my father does my hair, do you know what I'm saying? It's so God bless my mother for trying. She tried a little bit of coconut oil and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, she wasn't great at it. And what I'm saying is if you're not taught how to love yourself and how to just appreciate the gifts that you've been given,
and just that as being greatness.
Exactly. First of all, coming from a biracial family myself, I find it a very sticky point to say acting white, because I can act white, I can act black. Too white for the white kids, or too white for black kids, too black for the white kids. It's that kind of scenario. So I feel identity, knowing who you are, associate yourself with something that you feel comfortable with. Fuck black or white. It's real. I understand there's a massive separation here, but the longer you focus on that, the longer it will continue. So liberate yourself.
Black girls gave me the most problems. It wasn't a lot from white girls.
When my mom and dad would go to the store, they would come back to his car and a lady would write on a sheet of paper, "You cracker lover," or something like that, and identify myself as being African American. But at the beginning, when I was younger, I used to erase everything and put mixed, and I used to get in trouble by my teachers. And they would always say, "Why are you putting mixed on there? You're either, black, or you're black, basically." And so I would have to say, back then I would say mixed, but now I understand that I kind of have to just say African American because that's what society breaks it down to.
Black, to be honest, because that's the side that I grew up with, so.
Was you raised in a black neighborhood, black culture?
Yes, I was. I was born in California, but I grew up in New York. So I was raised on my father's side of the family, and my father is Jamaican and Spanish.
Did you go to black schools?
Yes, I did. I went to PS7, PS132 in Queens, and then when I moved to Georgia, I did go to a predominantly white school in middle school, and then I moved to Atlanta and ended up at predominantly black.
I identify myself with black and white because my parents, my mom is mixed, half and half, she's black and white. My grandparents, that's why.
I identify myself as black because my father is black.
Were you raised with your father?
No, I was raised with my mom.
And your mom is white?
Yes.
So why would you identify yourself with black just because your dad's black if you was raised with your mom?
Because my mom told me that I should always identify myself as what my father is.
I grew up around not my Mexican side of my family because my mom moved to Columbus and she met her ex-husband and he was predominantly, his family was black. So with him being in the household and my Mexican side of the family being in El Paso, Texas, I didn't grow up around them. I grew up around a black household.
Basically, I'm multiracial, so
I don't just choose one race. I just say I'm mixed, or I would mark 3 things on whatever the choices were, or I just say other.
There's no black people in our community.
Right. I mean, I think that and we're 3 years apart, so the only time we were in school together was elementary school. When he was in middle school, right when he was going out, I was coming in. And I almost think that worked better for me because he kind of was able to pave the way a little bit. But I mean, to count on one hand how many black kids were at our school that we went to, you might say 4, and 3 of those are mixed. So nobody was just full-blooded black that we grew up with. So I mean, you really didn't have a choice but to gravitate toward, for me, it was the white girls. I wanted to be more like the white girls. I wasn't ever built like them. I wasn't skinny like them. I didn't have, the Abercrombie and Fitch that they were wearing. I couldn't dress like them. We didn't have the means for that.
Black, of course, because personally, I don't know any Asian people because I never had the opportunity to meet that other grandparent who was Asian, and my mother never had the opportunity to meet her father as well. So she knows he's Asian, of course, but she doesn't know anything else about him.
I identify myself as being black the most. Why? For the simple fact, I don't know, I guess being around my white family so much, I feel like I don't have as much of a touch with my black side of the family. And later on in my adult years, I have been more in touch with them than I have with my white side of the family.
Sorry, not to negate what you said, but I'm saying we've got to be careful. Look, we have to be careful about what we say because we're in grounds where it's like you have to be. I guess you have to have the tools to be able to discern nuanced conversations. Otherwise, we're in tricky grounds. And I'm saying, yes, blackness is greatness, but it can also be said in the same breath that brownness is greatness and fucking whiteness is greatness. So we have to kind of.
But it's only been said that whiteness is greatness.
No, but this is it has. In terms of history, politically, whiteness has been the greater power in terms of spreading their ideals across the world. That's not the same concept of black is great, and then it's not the same concept of white is great. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with you.
Maybe wrong choice of what?
Yeah, it's more just that it's a good. Well, we should say equal. It's equal. You're right. You're right to correct me there.
You've got to be careful about saying certain shit, even though it sounds empowering.
Look, if you look at Solange's album, and Tina Knowles, I think one of the interludes on it was her saying that it's like, for example, BET Awards, or Black Girl Magic or something like that. When there's been such an incredible lack of that message, sometimes you do need to go ham. You do need to be like, you know what? It's greatness, not just anything. Because actually there are decades, centuries to be undone. And do you know what? White people take the L. If it makes you I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. If it makes you uncomfortable hearing blackness is greatness.
But we've got to be careful about saying white people, because it's not white people.
It's whiteness.
Specific.
It's not white people. It's the concept of whiteness. Western is a lot of different coloured people as well. Western is black British people. Western is.
It's important to call it whiteness because it is a white ideology. Sorry, go on.
Do you know how you guys were on about it, saying, you can't say black is greatness, but that's basically the all lives matter argument. Basically, it's just people. It's just I don't want to say white because it's not all white people, but it's just the certain people that they're racist. People that say that. The people that are all lives matter that's ridiculous because literally white is seen as the ordinary. Anything else is the other. So that's why it annoys me. Acting white to me is such a relevant topic because I grew up in a predominantly white area, and then what I found really interesting, what they discussed about was the fact that the only people that are why are you acting white would be black people, and it's kind of annoying because I'm just why? It just irritates me. Why acting white is if you're educated or well spoken, that's classed as like acting white. It just gets me so like it gets me so angry because I'm just like, why is like saying like slang words or like, you know, being a bit like being like saying stuff like bear? Why is that considered like acting black? Like obviously it comes from like the rappers and what they're like portraying. It's it's one topic that, oh my god, it gets me so frustrated to have to like control myself and calm myself down. White is the same as like the ordinary. Everything's white. Like the ordinary is white. Like anything else is different. Like that's, you know, all the different races. So it just irritates me that why can't a black person be well spoken? Why does it have to be, oh, you're acting white? Like just because you're black or mixed race doesn't mean you have to start, you'd be like using words like bear and blood like in every single sentence. So it just like that like super irritates me. So I think it was like really relevant, and what everyone said was so true, because it is about, I feel like the fact is like if you say to someone, oh, you're acting white or you're acting black, you're uneducated. Yeah.
Yo, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Wolf Victor. We out here straight thugging. Hot money. Y'all, I recently found out that I'm black.
You're black?
Yeah, dog. Got an email to a free trial to Ancestry.com. Found out I'm African American, y'all.
You don't look it.
It's cause I'm whitewashed, G. I may not look it, but I feel it, y'all. And whenever I see myself in the mirror, I know who exactly I am, alright? As a black gentleman, y'all.
Known Wolf Victor for a little while now. And like last week, he was on Ancestry.com and got 100% black on his DNA test. Now he thinks he's black.
Is he black?
What? No. He's white like Wonder Bread. Be honest with you, gotta go along with it because we're pretty sure he's special needs.
Check this out, dog. This is a picture of my great-great-grandpa. Y'all, if you could compare the facial features on me and him, you know? Can't even tell a difference, dog. Not tell me I ain't black, y'all. Aight, y'all. We balling out, dog. I'm about to show you my skills, y'all. Yeah, you going down, dog. What the fuck, G? What the fuck?
So why do you talk like that?
What y'all mean, G?
Where did you get that accent?
That's just me, man. Talk like this ever since I can remember, y'all. You know what I mean? Raised in Zone 6, y'all straight out of the hood, G. Aight, ma. Me and the boys are off. Go do some gang shit.
Okay, Gubs, are you gonna be home for dinner? I'm making tuna casserole.
Dana be, we be he, when we be.
Be safe and don't forget to bring your puffer with you.
Don't tell me what to do.
Ever since Victor got the news that he's black, he's totally changed.
Yo, ma, we got no food. I can't eat this white people.
I don't understand what skirt, gang is. He used to be an A student. Now I can't understand anything he's saying. But I'm there for him, it doesn't matter. He's my black boy.
Shut dog, yeah. Got these face tats, gang shit. Whoop, 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 skirt. Gang shit. Yeah, dog. Yeah, dog.
Yes, Victor.
Yeah, you guys wanna go for some KFC?
Chicken, super choice.
Sweet, y'all. Yo, my n***s. What, y'all?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What? My n***s. What the f***? Yo, dog! Yo, G! Yo, you're coming back, right?
Yes, my birthday is March 7th, but July 19th was the day I found out I was black. Like, my whole entire life, my mom kept telling me, you're white. I never believed her because I knew I was black, but July 19th, I did some history. I went on Ancestry.com, and I found out I'm 25% black, and this whole time I knew it. I knew I was a black girl. So I just consider that to be my birthday because it's just a very exciting holiday for me. So I thought I'd celebrate. I didn't know how to celebrate, but it said it was my birthday. So that's just to clear up everything for y'all.
Thank you for understanding that I am a black girl.
I'm not saying you're not allowed to say, or you shouldn't say black is great. That's not gonna
No, I know you're not.
But I'm just saying people have to be careful when they're chanting certain things.
Need a backbone, like just because blackness is greatness doesn't negate that whiteness could be greatness. Doesn't discount the fact that Indian can be greatness.
Just because me and you've had this conversation before as well, and I think where we have to be careful in that the conversation about not catering to the feelings of white people, which I understand on a mass level. I think the reason we're at this point that we're at the moment with such a disparity between the white working class and everybody else is that a lot of these white working class people don't understand this concept of privilege. If you were to go to a Welsh mining town where Thatcher has fucking absolutely destroyed their industry, these white people living in these towns, they don't have they don't see black people. They don't have, so to explain to them racial privilege is a completely foreign concept because they're all poor and they don't actually have a reference point of racial privilege because they don't see any other ways. I've had it before where I don't get told by black people that, oh, you talk black or you act black. I get told by other white people, and I can always read between the lines. I can always understand that what they're actually saying is the negative parts about my personality, or not even about my personality, but the negative and undesirable aspects that I have about myself that actually aren't rooted in anything other than not having a great education, growing up in a working class community, etc., etc. Those are the things that they associate with, oh, you're acting black or you're talking black. So it's always clear what the motive is. So when they see a Londoner with a black, white, female, male saying check your privilege to them, for them it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You see what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that we need to be careful to guard the feelings of white people. I think especially white people like us who live in London, we're around mixed groups of people. I think any white person who has it. But when you're dealing with people who are so far removed from it's impossible to have a blanket statement towards it because they don't understand.
No,
and I'm not saying it's black people's responsibility to try and educate them. It's actually our responsibility as white people who are a little more, and I don't want to use the word socially enlightened because it's quite patronizing, but essentially maybe more privileged in our awareness. It's our responsibility to try and, exactly, not to belittle them and be like, they're fucking chavs, they're idiots, they're fucking, do you see what I'm saying? And I think that statement towards white people of just, not catering to, I think it's a tricky.
The market has become basically saturated. It's predominantly white. So I basically feel like the key is education. Literally, without sounding like no. But generally,
see, when you say the key is education, let's get practical about this. How do we implement? Because me, it's like.
My next thing was going to be the fact that I feel, okay, look at us here, look at the mix. This makes me very happy. I feel like we should have an Asian and maybe a little bit of but I'm really happy with the mix, and I feel like basically we are the key, we are the future.
It starts like this.
We are the seeds. We now are going to flower, and we need to flower into the industry and change the saturation. Basically, do you get what I'm saying? Only think about the people that are in the industry at the moment. Think about how much of an impact they're able to make, and obviously the more the merrier. So,
can I just quickly say something here?
Of course.
The concept of acting white and acting black is quite difficult for me personally, because I've got a white mum. Me acting white, I'm white. Me acting black, I'm black. I think the general consensus was that black people have a self-hatred in place that means another person of their own skin colour acting white threatens them to an extent that it means that they've got to lash out at that person and call them a coconut, call them an Uncle Tom, call them a bounty, whatever they may say. Obviously, it goes both ways. A lot of black people say white people act black as well, which, as Snips was saying, it sort of it can offend black people more than it would offend white people. If at all, if it would offend white people, some white people would actually see that as a compliment. So I think you just have to be careful. as I said, I'm half white, half black. I'm speaking for my black half now. We've got to be careful as black people to say an individual is acting black or acting white, because you're very much pigeonholing people into a position where they're not their identity or the way they're acting is just the way they are intrinsically. So you're basically putting a person down for just the way they are. Were we not done? Is that not what happened to us? Were we not literally put down for being black? Or were we not killed for being black? We were under the maddest oppression.
These Spanish and these white hoes, they done start getting finer than a motherfucker. Y'all black hoes better tighten up. I'm telling you. Tighten up. Y'all doing all that extra shit for nothing. You're not achieving nothing, bitch. You get your ass done, your titties done, and you're paying $150 to get your makeup done just to go to a local club, bitch. Tighten up, ho. These Spanish and these white hoes is getting very spiffy on y'all. They fuck around and learn how to fry chicken. You hoes is useless.
I like his face on there. That was hilarious.
People were upset about this.
Yeah, I could see why, but there's some truth to it. You see, there's some truth to it, because while the black woman, especially here in North America, has been taught to be very combative with her man, she might have grown up in a household where the man wasn't there and the woman is talking shit about, oh, your father ain't shit, da-da-da-da-da. Don't you ever let no man, you better be an independent woman, blah, 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 all that bullshit, right? And then meanwhile, you got, the Spanish chicks or a white chick or even a black girl who was from outside of America, like let's say from the Caribbean, some fucking where.
Right.
These women are trained from a young age to cater to their man,
right,
to make them feel at peace and at home and all of that type of shit.
Right.
And to know when to shut the fuck up.
Right. Although Caribbean women have their own.
Oh, listen.
Strand of crazy.
Everybody got their strand of crazy. Everybody got their own strand of crazy.
And that comes from personal experience, but go on.
Everybody got their own strand of crazy.
Right.
But I'm just saying, generally, these women are more bred to be more submissive.
Yes.
To the man.
I agree.
Okay, and Asians, all of that,
Yeah.
It's the black woman in America who, and it's not just her fault. I mean, she's gone through so much shit, from the time of slavery where she was getting raped by the slave master right in front of the man, and he couldn't do nothing. Mm-hmm. That's going to put a certain amount of animosity and shit toward, resentment towards the fact that your mate couldn't do that, couldn't save you.
And then historically, black women had an easier time getting jobs than black men.
Yes, and that was a social engineering thing too.
Which does something to the, what's the word I'm looking for? To the relationship.
Right. Absolutely.
The dynamics of the relationship, because historically the man is supposed to get the job and make the money. It switches the
polarity.
Yeah.
And when we switch polarity, what happens? Chaos. Chaos. Just like when you try to switch sexual polarities, but we're not going to keep talking about that. So what I'm saying is, what I get from what he's trying to say is, sisters, fix your attitude. You know what I mean? It's not just about tightening up your bodies and all this type of shit. Because he's saying, we know y'all got the fine bodies, but these white girls now is getting ass injections, titties, blah, blah, blah. So now they're trying to make their bodies comparable with a black woman's body.
Right.
Their attitude might be better. So he's saying, if this bitch learn how to fry some chicken, y'all might be fucked up. Because now, at the end of the day, a man wants peace. You understand? He don't want to be beefing with his woman.
Right.
This is why, I say 80% of the time a man might lie to a woman is only because he wants peace. And he knows that the woman would not be able to deal with the reality of his life.
Yeah.
So he got to fucking lie to her.
Right.
You know what I mean? Black woman, give your man peace. You know what I mean? Give your man peace, black woman. Like, this doesn't mean let him walk over you and treat you like a doormat and da-da-da-da-da. Always, always have your respect, command your respect, and, have certain boundaries. But understand your man needs love and support from you. Not always ray, ray, ray in his motherfucking ear. You know what I mean?
Angry black woman.
Crazy.
Why do you say that?
Because they're all crazy, crazy angry black women. I've seen them. Why? Why does that have to be a question?
Probably majority of them are single mothers. Is a recipe for a good angry black woman.
Unapologetic.
Someone who's just like super sassy, raising her voice.
It's just so stupid. Rather than people saying, oh, well, why is this woman so mad? Suppressing their true emotions because you don't want to hear it.
Stereotype. In the media, if you speak out or something like that, or you express your emotions, then you're the angry black woman.
Yeah, someone called me like that.
Do you think that's an easy way to shut someone down?
Well, I don't think so, because they didn't shut me down.
I kind of feel like that word is tossed out anytime that we speak up for ourselves. It's not even just when we're angry. It's whenever we speak in difference to somebody else.
Why you gotta put race on it? It's just an angry woman.
What? Everyone's angry. Everyone's angry. It doesn't matter if you're white, black, Asian.
I don't think it's a stereotype. I think it's a role that's being played because it's real. When I think of an angry black woman, I think of a woman that's been betrayed or hurt.
Typically when someone's angry and they get described as that, that usually means there's some unresolved hurt.
Honestly, just think of the movie, the Tyler Perry movie. Angry black women in movies, look like that, but most black women aren't angry.
I'm not an angry black woman. I'm goofy.
They think we're all ghetto, welfare queens, uneducated, and in real life, we're probably some of the happiest, most positive people you'll ever meet in your life. Get to know us.
Jealous of a white woman for dating a black man.
I've evolved a lot of it. I think it's initially very hurtful because it's like the media and society tells you, white women are here and you're somewhere here. Mm-hmm. And if anybody is supposed to think the opposite, it's supposed to be black men. If anybody's supposed to think that you're beautiful, that you're attractive, it's supposed to be black men. And so when you see black men going out of their way to date, and not to say that all black men who are married to white women are doing it for some brainwashed reason, but when you look at the numbers of black men who are married to white women, it's a little more than any other interracial. So it's kind of like something else at work here. Yeah. So when you see that, it's kind of like it's just another person who's telling you you're not good enough.
No, I'd probably say I was more angry at the black man, not the white woman. And the only reason for me is that whenever the topic has come up, there's been a black man who's like, I'm dating a white girl because black women are this, and this. White women are the antithesis of black women. That's where I want to be.
I was watching a movie a couple weeks ago. I caught like 10 minutes of it on like TBS or something, and I think it's called This Christmas. The guy playing his brother is supposed to be dating a white girl, and another black guy says something about how, oh, well, I hear white girls are really good on their knees, like kind of saying that white girls like will get like faster than a black girl will.
For a long time, there was this thing like black girls don't do oral, or you have, yeah, like or you have to be
like special occasion.
Right.
But then like all these comedians come out like they do it.
Don't talk about it.
Right. And I think it kind of even goes back to like the high school thing of like where girls like, I just gave them.
I'm still a virgin.
Right. Yeah. More white girls may say that, but I don't know.
I feel like Jewish girls, like there's like a Jewish girl stereotype that you'll get it before you're married, but then once you marry a Jewish girl, you'll never get it ever again.
Like you're uptight or something? Like Jewish girls are uptight about that kind of stuff?
Yes, I mean, well,
I don't know. I think the stereotype about Jewish women is that they're difficult. Is that they like rule the household and that the man has to like do whatever they say.
So is it just white women or is
like just dating outside the race in general? I don't feel that way toward Latino women.
Yeah.
Like if it's a Latina, even if it's Asian, even if it's an Asian
Well,
woman.
yeah, I normally don't, but I think the only reason is that now it's like I'd rather have a Latina woman than a black woman. Like they still feel
Something.
like,
Anything
yeah, it's
black.
that exoticism that they like that. You know, you got the long hair, the silky, you know, all that type of stuff. Like that.
I asked this question in the thing because I did date a black guy. There was an incident where we were at the H&M in Harlem, and we were just walking around, and a black girl gave me the stink eye. Apparent enough that he could see it. And then when we left the H&M, he told me about it, and I was just like, why would she be mad at me? Like, why isn't she mad at you?
I think the thing that's like offensive about it all around is that like when you're like you can have preferences of who you're attracted to and what you're attracted to and what qualities you're attracted to and even physically what you're attracted to when you're dating, but like to try to purposely, like that's not how love works. It's like I'm gonna go find this kind of person. Like,
right. Have you ever felt like that you were fulfilling some type of like exotic fantasy for a black man?
A little bit. Like, so he was kinky and I'm also kinky, and so I think that's why we connected. But I wasn't sure entirely if, like, while we were doing sexual stuff, if there was something going on in his head that was like, I'm like overpowering, dominating a white woman. Not that it really bothered me because it was all fantasy, it was all play. But that was definitely a thing that I thought about is part of the reason he's attracted to me and what he's doing to me, because I'm white and he's playing it out something.
well, and if you're a kinky black guy, is it? I guess I'm wondering, is kinky is like the kink community something that like black like are is that, I don't know, like are a lot of black women kinky?
We have a kink.
Yeah.
Then more just don't talk about it.
Like,
As
I was
far as
wondering,
what
yeah.
might have been wrong with him,
He probably feels like he's probably approached women who are looking for something a little bit more like rough. Everybody still wants a man on the job, but you have to have I think a lot of women look for a man with a certain kind of like je ne sais quoi, like swag.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say swag because it's so played out.
Swagger.
Like, certain swagger. You know? And when you don't have that, sometimes it can come off kind of cornball.
Yeah.
And cornball men are not attractive, even if they have money. Like look at like a Nick Cannon, very attractive guy, but he's a cornball, and that's not attractive. So you're like, good luck, Mario.
Well, okay, but I don't think that's entirely true. Like, I would say that, like, okay, this black guy that I dated, he was a Republican. Like,
and that'll come up.
Like, whoa! Yeah, like, I didn't, that was something I thought about, was like, do I think that he's just really cool because he's black? But it was like, no, he's not cool. He works in finance and he's a Republican, and
even you didn't think he was.
You look past that.
I've dated a couple of black guys, and I found that one of the black guys that I dated, I still know him like socially. He ended up marrying a white woman, and he like only dated white women. But I feel like it was because his mother is white.
Yeah.
And I felt like that's, I feel like, and I have other friends who are biracial, and they'll like, interracial dating is different to them.
Yeah.
So
It's not
even though they're black, like, they're not thinking about dating like a white man or a white woman in the same way, because they have a parent, you know, they have like one parent that's white, one parent that's black.
I know I definitely perceive that differently. Like, if you have a white mother, I'm like, oh, well, no.
Yeah.
You know, he has a white mother. Like, he's grown up with white women in his house. Like, why wouldn't
So
he?
it's like a certain, it's like a comfort or familiarity.
Two black parents, it's like,
that's gotta be a different.
Hate your mother. It's not that you hate your mother, and even the reaction that they might have to it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, this is not what we wanted for you, but okay.
But you know, I was gonna say, and I think that there's a difference between black women and white women. Not that black women aren't kinky, but even when you said you were kinky, and you just said it so calmly and so chill, I was like, wow.
Right. You didn't care who knew.
Right.
And,
Black women, if you say you're kinky, somebody's gonna look at you like, you're gonna be judged.
But why?
I don't know what it is. It's like there's like a morality behind it. It's like, well, a part of it is that black women's images have been so sexualized, and so you don't want to perpetuate a stereotype by saying I'm kinky, I do this. Was like, oh, well, you're a Jezebel,
right?
Like, just like we said you were. Just like we said you were. So it's kind of like, even if you do that in the privacy of your own home, you don't really broadcast that because you're going to be judged for it by white women and black women.
Differentiate what is acting white, because being well read, being well versed in anything, being articulate is not a white trait. Positive characteristics are not linked to any particular race. The fact that we think that being well spoken, dressing yourself, or taking pride in your appearance is white is a product of the ingrained racism that we feel within ourselves. So there is no such thing as acting white. There is no such thing as acting black. Yes, there are influences of black culture and hip-hop culture, but black people don't act in one specific way.
I used to go play football at Boardwalk Farm.
Yes.
This is deep Tottenham. If you know Tottenham, you know Boardwalk Farm, innit? So I used to go play football there, right? My mum used to take me in there. She's the one white person in there. Yeah, straight up, one white person there. I get told that I'm acting white regardless of where I am or not, isn't it? Because I'm the only person who's associated with anything white. They might see one white person a week, these people. Do you understand what I'm saying? I see one every day when I wake up. That's what I'm used to, innit? So it's kind of like, for me to act white, I'm not acting white, I'm just being myself. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So
it's more for me, but it's also kind of like how the world views you. Because I find it surprising, and I find it pretty nuts that Obama is still called the United States of America's first black president. When in actual fact, he's fucking mixed race.
Yeah.
He's just negated his other
white mother raised him.
You know what I'm saying?
This is even more inherent of Americans, want to fucking be the world, essentially. He's also called an African American president, because he's not an African American. He's half African, half American. He's not actually African American.
Yeah,
it doesn't come from
so based on your point, for me, it's how the world views you, and the world views you right now as a black dude. You know what I'm saying? Because they're gonna judge you on that.
To a police officer, I'm an IC3. That's it.
An IC3 with a beard, you might be a terrorist.
You But when I'm on the tube, people move away from me. Yeah. So now, I sort of very deeply sympathize with the Arabs and the Asians with the really long beards who, they're listening to...
They don't have to have beards, mate. They don't even have to have beards anymore. They just brown skin.
That's it.
Honestly.
But boy, I deeply sympathize
Black Muslims, definitely. It's a thing, I think that is an intersection which is incredibly hard.
You're saying that, I'm feeling, okay, so we know how the world twists and turns, and we always have, we always point the finger at somebody. Someone always has to be the lesser. I'm just, I feel the way that things are moving, I don't know, I feel like, unfortunately, the Muslim culture is going to be, it is already the victim.
Of course. Of politicized and, villainized
constantly. So in 50 years, will they be having the same conversation, but about,
Are you saying that about somebody else? Then the butt's going to be why are you acting brown? Why are you acting
brown? I'd say. No. Of course, sorry, that completely negate that. I'm saying it's not it's not appropriated.
Black culture is the only culture that is widely appropriate.
Yeah, exactly. And also,
there was never white kids at school that we're told you're acting Asian or trying to be like Asian.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You never see that with white kids. You don't see it. Even to the point, even with African culture, it's only a recent thing with this generation. When I grew up, it was just Caribbean culture.
Yeah.
White kids only ever wanted to reappropriate Caribbean culture, and in America, Black American culture.
The thing is, it's interesting because you were saying about what defines being white, and for me, someone who is well spoken but also begs black culture loads. I love music, and not only that, I love African family. I love aunties. I love I love church. All of those things. But for me, I'm still told, and this is not but I'm told that I'm acting black. So I think I'm someone who.
Well, you know what? I get the opposite. I get told that I'm acting white, which I find bizarre because of my environment. It's almost been I've been me acting black, quote unquote, is almost like a given to people I've known, which is bizarre, but whatever. Is when I do white stuff, I then get this surprise raw snips, what, you eating fish and chips? Or you going to the pub to watch football?
The reason why you were saying, for me, black culture is even problematic within itself is because there's so many subsets to quote unquote black culture. And when you just call it black culture, it's almost like you like reduce it to this one thing in the same sort of way that you reduce acting black to like this one thing.
But that's why I say about the church and about because it's not just like acting like a thug is black culture. No, there's some of these rich things.
But it's almost the kind of thing where it's like just not taking your time. This is not like directed to you, by the way. It's just
dude, direct.
No, but it's just not.
Tweet me, fam.
If it was, it will be that. But it's just even like because I'm saying even calling it black culture is reducing it to something that's not in the same way. Saying someone's acting black or white is reducing to something that's not as well. So I'm saying we kind of have to, I guess, spend more time maybe trying to really understand about other people and other people's cultures, because realistically it's like
I consider black culture is solely what gets pushed as youth culture.
They're talking about hip-hop culture essentially. That is what you mean when you say you're acting black. You're talking about acting like you're a hip-hop
If I played the saxophone and went to Ronnie Scott's every Sunday, would anyone tell me I'm practicing black culture? Because if anything, that's more black culture than listening to grime music.
Exactly.
You know? But no one would associate it because it's not youth black culture.
But this is the thing, and that's why I never shy away, because as someone I'm someone who sees a lot. I'm sorry, I don't want to be like a culture vulture, like, but I see a lot of beauty in different cultures. So for me, when I think about Muslim friends of mine, I think about all of the like celebrate, like for me, that's what comes naturally. I know that's not always the way, but so for me, when I think about black culture, I'm thinking about like, because there's two sides. First of all, there's two very different sides to that. There's Jollof and there's it's a massive thing, and people negate that.
That's another thing. There's so much prejudice within the black culture to each other that it's crazy. Like if you're a Caribbean person and you're seen dressed up in African attire, you also get caned for it.
But I know Caribbean families who say they rather their child marry a white man than
this is what's mad. It's like unreal. I don't understand.
But do you know about that? Like, do you know what I find interesting? Because I grew up in a predominantly white area.
Yeah.
Like I'd always have it was the black people that told me, "Oh, why are you acting white? Why are you doing that? Why are you straightening your hair?" And then do you know what you were saying about? Like I understand. Like it's different because I know with my black family. Like I know South, they'll be sometimes like, "Oh, why don't you find a black boy? Where do you go?"
Where are they from? Your black
like, well, they're from like the mix from Trinidad and Grenada. But the thing is, you have to I do obviously I don't agree with what they say, but I understand where they're coming from, because obviously I can see how they'll be like, they don't want me to go for a white guy because maybe with his family they might see me as less. So I understand why they say that, and they've got a valid point for saying that, but I don't think it's right.
This is the thing, black folks are still dealing with the remnants of slavery, and there's still this thing, because we're still marginalised in society, and we've still got a fucking battle to fight to somewhat be considered equal.
Is fairly understandable.
So it's also this kind of thing where it's like, because we still feel like we've got a battle to face in terms of being considered equal amongst other races, anything that kind of seems in the eyes of black culture that you're going against the team is kind of frowned upon. So if it looks like you're I guess adopting characteristics that looks like it's from the other side, you're going to be deemed a traitor. So I think that's inherently where that comes from as well. But again, it's all for me underlying remnants of slavery, man.
I had a conversation with my girl, and we were talking about the concept of class and race, and I was I am proud to be working class. And the thing is, with working class people, my dad now probably earns in a bracket where he's probably middle class financially. My dad grew up working class. He brought me up working class. When I was young, he didn't have that money. The money he has now. So I can't lose that, and he can't lose that, because it's a part of your identity as a working class person. Now, I was having this conversation with my girl, and she was like, "You couldn't tell my family that they're working class." Her family are from Jamaica, they came in the 60s. Okay. It's like, you couldn't tell my family that they're working class. They take that as an insult. And we were talking about it, and it occurred to me that the issue with class isn't as apparent with black people, because black people class wasn't used as a way to demonize black people. Being black was enough. Being black was enough. So you're black. Don't matter what class you are, you're black, so you're therefore not here with us. So for poor white people, the title of being working class was so stamped into us as a way to say you are lesser than the establishment, that if a black person then essentially reappropriates this culture here, for the upper class, it's it's not white because it's not these type of white people. You see what I'm saying?
Interesting what you said that, but do you know why yours is Do you know why that's even more complicated than what you even just said, even though what you said is even quite profound? The black folks, the black folks that came from the West Indies and Africa are the black folks that from their nation are not working class. You know what I'm saying? They're like middle class or upper class.
Not
but when they come over here, but most times when they come over here, then they're reduced to being working class again. So they don't want
not necessarily the case with Caribbeans though.
They don't want that title again of being deemed working class, because back in their native land they're not working class. So I think that's why over there there's a bit of a mix up.
I don't know if that's not entirely specific to Caribbeans. There was still a lot of working class Caribbean people that came here.
I mean, to a degree, but the majority had a bit of, you know.
During on your point though, talking about obviously the working class, it's funny because this is why I'm talking about education is key. Because seriously, if you look, we actually invited like the West Indies and we needed So it's obviously now we're taught self-hatred because we're not told these things. Again, with obviously people like, oh yeah, they come take our job or something. Your government invited us to come here.
Okay, so what is talking black? And is there such a thing? No, there is no such thing. Talking black is this, it comes from this idea that black people are all, you know, we're a monolith, that we all act and behave and talk and think the same. And that's just not true. Talking black is something that obviously has been around way before I was born. It's the idea that if you speak proper English and you say ask instead of ax, then you're trying to be better than what you think, than what you are. And it's a little ridiculous, I think. It's pretty absurd that it's still a thing. I went through it growing up. It bothers me way less now than it did, but the only thing that really bothers me now about it is that, you know, you have black kids that are still going through the same thing, you know, I think it sucks. Like no other, like white people don't go through that. You know, they don't go through that. It's almost like the more you dumb yourself down, or the less educated you sound, then you're more akin to blackness. And why is that? That sucks. That's terrible. I think that's a defeatist attitude. That's a terrible way to think about yourself and an entire race of people. I think that a lot of kids nowadays have a lot more advantages to the clothes they wear and their own individual style than I had as a kid in the 90s. Because back then, you know, it was the baggy clothes, the colors, loud colors and stuff like that. Now you see, you know, teenagers pretty much dressed the same, particularly, I think this affects boys more than females. I could be totally wrong on that. But now you see, you know, 14, 15-year-old kids, and they all kind of dress similar. Maybe because hip hop has a way bigger influence on culture now than when I was 14 and 15. It had a big influence then, but it's definitely not the monster that it is now. So, dressing black, you know, nowadays you can wear the skinny jeans, you can wear like a Metallica t-shirt, you know, and you good, you know, you cool. Back then in the 90s, it was like, ooh, you think you white? Like, nah, you couldn't do that back then, you know. In certain areas, you might get jumped for wearing stuff like that, but that's one thing that I think has come around a lot, you know. Even though it's trendy, I think it's still good that black kids have can be more imaginative with the way they dress. Because back in the day, in the 90s, it seemed like black boys and black girls, we all shopped at the same place. You know, it was the Wicked, the Carl Kanai, you know, the Mecca. We all, you know, pretty much, and I love those clothes as I look back at them, but, you know, it was not common to venture off in left field. You couldn't really be an outlier without being outcasted for the clothes you chose. Acting black. Same thing as talking black. I don't believe in it. It's, you know, acting black. I guess it pertains to like the activities that you choose to do, what you and groups of black people choose to do. You know, like rock climbing. Like that's a, you know, that's white people stuff. Bungee jumping, skydiving. I don't want to skydive. It ain't because I'm black, it's because I'm scared. But I rock climb. I like to go on hikes. Why can't we be as adventurous as we want to be? We should be able to get out of our respective cities and be able to do everything that white people can do. Why not? I think the more you travel, I think that's a big part of it too. I think we should all have a passport, and I think that the more you travel, the more your mind expands. With all types of stuff. The food you eat, the music you listen to, the entertainment that you watch, the books you read. I'm looking at my bookcase right now. I have a lot of black authors up there, but I have other, non-black authors as well. Good literature. So I think that, the more any person travels and gets outside of their comfort zone and becomes essentially like an alien, and a foreign culture, so to speak, which I have been a couple of times. And you don't have to leave the United States to do that. You can go within our own borders. Your mind tends to expand, and you see what else is out there, and your palate becomes quite diverse as well. All right. Why do we value sports and entertainment over education? I don't know if we value. That's a tricky one. I will say this. For a long time, that has been sports and entertainment, whether basketball, baseball, track, football, tap dancing, singing the blues, singing jazz, playing instruments, acting, stand-up comedy. Those have been ways to express ourselves and a way for us to become successful and to become wealthy as well. But it's also very important to value those who choose popular careers, doctors, lawyers, architects, so on and so forth. I think that the thing is that one Oprah, one LeBron James can inspire so many young black minds to do whatever they want to do. When they reach those heights they've never been reached before, when they break those glass ceilings, it inspires so many people. And education, there's traditional education, but there's also trade schools and things like that. And let's not, you have to be very smart to be a LeBron James. His basketball IQ is out of this world. So let's not discount that. Even though he didn't go to college, he's a very smart human being. But value sports and entertainment over education. I definitely wouldn't say that we all do that. And you can do both at the same time. The problem is that we as people, regardless of our color, when we come home from that 8 hours a day, we want to be entertained, whether by watching sports, TV show, a movie. We want to laugh. We want to get away from our job. And especially as black people, we just don't want to get away from our job. We want to get away from all the racism that we face from the moment we leave our house to the moment we come back. And, I think that's something that we should be able to enjoy and at the same time value education. Subject that I don't think gets talked about enough is black joy and black eccentricity. To be eccentric as a black person is a luxury. To be that weirdo kid and not be almost vilified for it is a luxury. Of course, there is a lot of hardship. There's a lot of struggle, and those stories deserve to be told. But so do the stories where it's just a black kid just being a normal kid and having fun. And John Hughes was a great filmmaker, and he made tons of movies about high school kids. They were all white, but it seems like anytime you make a movie about black kids, it's about the suffering and the struggle, and that is a story that needs to be told. but sometimes, you know, that's not all we are. You look at a movie, the movie you might not think of is Roll Bounce with Bow Wow. You know, there's a movie with it's full of black kids, and they're just roller skating, and they could be any race, you know. But I love that movie because they're just kids being kids, and black kids especially, they have a right to their innocence. I think by the time they're 13, 14 years old, that's pretty much stripped from them. You know, it's taken from them. And I'd like to see more movies like that. Just to see black kids that are just enjoying life. And, you know, black kids are just, you know, those weirdo, those blurs, those black nerds, those black geeks. They have a voice too, so I think that's something I like to see a little bit more. I got called a white boy a lot. I was told that I talk white. I wasn't hard. So it really affected me pretty much up until a few years ago when I decided to let all that go. I did some therapy, and I talked about it in therapy, which I think we should all do. I think every black person, we deserve free therapy. You know, you talk about reparations, I'll take that. Free therapy for all black people, because in a sense, I think we all suffer from PTSD. But yeah, I got jumped. I got in a lot of fights because I kind of didn't back down. You know, I was called a white boy, and you know, it was an insult then. I haven't really heard that much anymore, but people will say other things, you know, but it doesn't bother me anymore. I just wish that kids nowadays didn't have to go through that, because you're telling them, you know, what you are now is unacceptable for your community. You need to be this way. And we're the most colorful people on the planet. We should be able to do anything we want. Act, behave, talk, you know, total free expression without worry. Let's see. Coon. Coon is a word that has become more popular in the past couple of years. Unfortunately, I think it gets, some people get called coons when they aren't, just because they may think something differently than a lot of other black people, you know, then they're called a coon, you know. Oh, I hate that. I mean, there are some, we know who they are, but I can't label someone a coon off of one action, which is something that I think happens far too much. I think there has to be a pattern, you know. There definitely has to be a pattern to that person's behavior and the things that they do before they're called a coon. Uncle Tom, someone that just wants to appease white people at the cost of throwing black people under the bus. Something I will never do. But unfortunately, those people do exist, and I think we gotta get rid of them. Well, they're not even with us. They've gone up to the. They're not with us. They're not riding with us. So we don't really have to get rid of them. We just have to make sure that their message, whatever message they're trying to send, is make sure that their message doesn't overshadow the real message, which is that we want justice, equality, dignity, and empathy.